The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, welcome everyone. It is 5:00 p.m. I call this meeting to order. This is our Community Redevelopment Agency for the City of Cape Canaveral regular board meeting. Today we are acting in our capacity as board members. I am the chair, Vice Chair Kellum, Chairperson Raymond, Chairperson Willis, and Chairperson Davis are here. If you would like to fill out a comment card, please provide it to our Sergeant at Arms over here. And also, those can be provided in the back. Without further ado, I call this meeting to order, and we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Kellum, would you please lead us?
United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Board Member Davis. Vice Chairperson Kellum. Here. Chairperson Morrison.
Here.
Board Member Raymond.
Here.
Board Member Willis.
Here. Thank you very much. At this time is public participation. Any member of the public may address any items that do not appear on the agenda, and any agenda item that is listed on the agenda for final official action by the board, excluding public hearing items that are heard at the public hearing portion of the meeting, ministerial items, and quasi-judicial or emergency items. Citizens, we ask you to please limit your participation to 3 minutes, and we will not take any action under this public participation portion of the meeting. But we are open to schedule items in the future. So if you are here tonight, the green light in front of me here means go, yellow light means you have 30 more seconds, and red means stop. And for those of you that are listening at home on our GoToWebinar platform, please raise your hand and our deputy city clerk can help you live connect, and we should be able to hear you here. And so with that, I don't have any public comment cards here today. City clerk, have you been given any? None? Seeing none, I'll look at our deputy clerk. I see none virtually. And with that, public participation is closed. We'll now move on to the new business portion of our meeting. Item number 1, which is to approve the minutes for Cape Canaveral CRA Board regular meeting, November 16th, 2022. Sorry, that was a typo, 2021. The actual minutes do say 2021. Board members, any questions on this or anything we need to ask staff?
No.
Any discussion amongst? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second. All right, got a motion by Board Member Raymond and a second by Board Member Willis to approve the minutes for the Cape Canaveral CRA Board regular meeting, November 16th, 2021. City Clerk.
Board Member Davis. 4. Vice Chair Kellum. 4. Chairperson Morrison.
4.
Board Member Raymond.
4.
Board Member Willis.
4. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to new business item number 2, which is approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 CRA board meeting schedule as amended. Board, any questions for staff on this? Not any discussion we want to have amongst ourselves? Everything look okay?
I have a question. As we're working through the CRA, the items that I have, can we schedule the, like there's budget workshops? Can there also be more workshops for the CRA board as we work through these amendments to our CRA plan and the other things that I'm bringing up? Is there something that we can add now, or do we add it as we go along?
So I think the question is based on our discussion tonight with these items, can we go back and add on additional times in this schedule? And please correct me if I'm wrong, I think at any point this board desires to amend this schedule, we would just need to vote on it. So I think we could vote this through tonight as is. And if we get into our discussion and realize we want to meet again, we would just make a motion to go back and amend it.
Yeah, the calendar is set up as a convenience for the board. And just for the public listening at home, the only reason we're amending this is because Brevard County has budget hearings that coincide with the calendared meeting dates for the CRA board. State law says when that conflict occurs, we have to move our dates, and that all that this does is move those dates. But everything else, yes, sir, correct.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Vice Chair Kellum?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. I think it's okay to me. Any other board members looking for a motion to adopt it?
I'll make a motion to adopt the calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Chairperson Willis and a second by Chairperson Davis. City Clerk.
Board Member Davis. Vice Chair Kellum.
4.
Chairperson Morrison.
4.
Board Member Raymond. 4. Board Member Willis.
4.
Motion passes 5-0 to approve the amended fiscal year 21-22 CRA board meeting schedule. Moves on to new business item number 3. This is a discussion on adding 2 residents to the CRA board submitted by Vice Chair Kellum. Vice Chair Kellum, please.
Yes,
Take it
thank you,
away.
Mayor. I recently, along with Angela, attended the CRA 101 class in Orlando, which was really interesting. I learned a lot. I had submitted these items before that class, but now I know a lot more than I did before. But I thought, other boards in other cities have it's not the council, it's residents. And I thought, what would be the hurt and why couldn't we add 2 residents to our board for the reasons that I stated, and also to have more citizen input, add value and diversity of the talents, that we have a wide range of talents in our city, business people that are interested in coming on board to help out with the visions of the city, and to make it, they're not elected, and sometimes that's a good thing, that they can see the whole picture and not be partisan in any way. And I thought, we can have up to 7 members. Why couldn't we add 2? So I wanted to discuss it with the council to see, or I guess at the board right now, to see what your input was. I think, the more effective citizen engagement we can have, the better we are. And now we have a new revisioning and a new direction. And I think it's time, we're a small CRA now, but as we grow, it'll be more and more money, more projects. And to have citizen involvement is only a plus, in my opinion. So that's why I brought it up.
Thank you. Board Member Raymond.
I feel that citizen involvement is already there when we have workshops, and they can come to any of our meetings. They're open for public comment. I believe that it is just fine the way it is. I don't think that anyone these days is nonpartisan. And I also believe that there's a difference, because the first thing that you learn when you go to an ethics class is that an elected office is a public trust. I want to repeat that to you. An elected office is a public trust. Citizens necessarily are not accountable, but elected officials are definitely accountable. We have to go by the rules. We have to follow the ethics rules. So I do think that there is a big difference. We have all of our advisory boards, and we take that very seriously. And all residents can participate in our advisory boards. So I believe that it's best to keep it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Raymond. Any other board members want to speak on this?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh.
You said Raymond, and you looked at me and said Raymond, so I wasn't sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, one, I don't know how we could pick a nonpartisan group. I mean, you know, what nonpartisan pool are we going to pick from? We all have our views. We all have our partisanships, no matter how we want to portray ourselves. And that's, I don't see where we could find two people that would not have some partisanship in some manner. The other issue I have is that they're non-elected. They're not accountable to the city, to the citizens and residents. And, you know, we could add two people that could be good, but I look at the participation we have, and I'm not. If we had all of our advisory committees full, be more inclined to look towards adding maybe somebody. But right now, I just don't think that it is beneficial or gives the accountability to the citizens and voters of Cape Canaveral. So I would be against adding that.
Thank you, Chairperson Willis. Chairperson Davis.
They called everyone. I am in agreement with what's been said. I think they need to be elected. I think that way we do have the accountability in that. So I am okay with how we are now with the 5.
Thank you very much. My comments, a couple of questions. As far as for our city attorney, do our advisory boards, I don't think they have to go through the ethics training, do they? That we have to go through?
No, they do not.
Do the CRA board members have to go through that? We have to fill out a form.
Yeah, I do not
one.
believe, I think it's just limited to the elected officials, unless they've modified the law. I'd have to double check that.
Every
But
year.
they are subject to, I mean, appointed boards are still subject to public employees and officers, ethics rules. They may not have to get, you know, the 4 hours of required training every reporting period, but they are subject to the rules generally.
So they're not, there's no difference in the rules that we really, between boards and elected officials. They just insist that elected officials do that 4-hour annual training.
Correct.
And sunshine law and all that still applies to all.
Voting conflicts, sunshine law, they apply to appointed boards as well.
Okay, got it. And could we as a city require the CRA board members to go through a 4-hour ethics course?
Yes.
Is like a,
the city could adopt, you know, certain ethical standards for appointed boards
got it.
above the minimum requirements in the statute.
Okay,
So you could require certain levels of training.
I don't know who to ask. I'll ask our city manager. Thank you, Anthony. Or our director in this capacity, whoever wants. The advisory boards that we have, are they, how many vacancies roughly do we have? I guess in which, are there any boards that are completely full? One is completely,
Our planning and zoning board is fully staffed, if you will. That's the only one.
you know, the other, we really have what, 3 others?
Yeah, community appearance board, board of adjustment. You know, those are really the other 2 seriously functioning boards. And those 2 are, well, let's just say sometimes we have difficulties getting a quorum there because we just don't have that many members
On
either of them.
and the Board of Adjustment doesn't meet very often.
No, both of those boards are as needed.
Right.
So it's, and that's one of the problems is we'll get a member on there and we won't meet for 6 months and some of them just kind of drift off into wherever because of that. That's one of the reasons, but yeah.
Makes sense, but the important one, P and Z and code enforcement was pretty important, but we made the decision to go with the magistrate. And so they have recommending power at the board level, obviously. And I think that Chairperson Raymond, you've served on a board, and Chairperson Willis, you've served on I think, community appearance for you, Raymond, and economic development, and I think Vice Chair served on the Culture and Leisure Services Board. And I think at any point, if I was to ask you, did you feel accountable to the citizens? I don't think anyone would have told me no at any point of that. And so I tried to listen closely to some of the reservations about this. And I think accountability was one thread that I heard through. And from my opinion, accountability is there by the nature of they're still bound by the ethics laws. Also, we are elected as a council, and our decision to appoint is something that the voters know we have. And so our judgment on who we appoint is indirectly an elected judgment. There is at least one layer away. We also have the ability to remove board members as well. And so I think that we stand in between the citizens strongly with accountability, and that those folks serving on advisory boards and the CRA boards are accountable. I think it's a good idea to consider. I guess one more question for the city attorney, and I'll be done. What was the intent of allowing the private non-elected members to serve on the board, I guess? Was it to welcome diversity and different perspectives?
Well, when the CRA was initially created, I think that when the CRA was initially created, the city council made themselves the CRA board because, one, it was new. Two, it was something that we just had to get off the ground and establish, groundwork for redevelopment in the city. So they felt, at the time that the council as an elected body should have the reserved powers of operating the CRA. I think they might have considered, and my recollection vague, might have considered, well, should we go to a 7 board? But at the time they felt that it should just be the council. If they ever wanted to go to 7 members with 2 additional appointees, they could always do that in the future. That's really about the extent of it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you all for helping me. I think that it is a good idea to bring in we would not restrict our ability to do business as a CRA at 5. If we opened up and said 2 more can come on, we as a majority have the ability to appoint who we get to serve with. And we can require them to go through ethics. They are bound by the same laws as we are. They have no immunity there. And not having a few culture and leisure services, community appearance boards not full, to me isn't a reason why we shouldn't at least open the door and give the opportunity for someone to serve. And I think it's worth at least opening the door and saying it's okay. And so I don't know if Chair Willis, if the boards were filled and the other ones, you said you would be more open to it if in the future?
Possibly in the future,
Okay.
but we have no criteria on how we would select anybody.
Well, that would be something that we would implement and how we would go about and what kind of background they would have and what they could add to the CRA board and the plans ahead. It's not like we'll just pick somebody off the street and say, I don't see what it would hurt. And, there are board members that have to abide by the sunshine law, and the citizens are the stakeholders here in our city. I don't see why they wouldn't want to do what's right. And, like you said, go through the ethics thing. You know, and as we develop the plan or add this, we could make the criteria. Maybe no one will apply, but why not offer it? You know, I don't see what adding 2 citizens would hurt. Anything that happens in the CRA plan or department, whatever you want to call it. I don't, you know, more citizen input is good to me. We don't have a CRA advisory board. And sometimes as a council, we don't listen to the city, to the citizen. We hear them, but we don't always do what they want us to do. So I'm just trying to add, we just got done with the revisioning. We got a lot of new ideas out there. And I think adding 2 citizens that are qualified in the criteria that we set up would be an asset. I don't see what it would hurt.
I see our city.
Yeah,
attorney.
Mr. Mayor, just so you have the information, there's specific requirements for those 2 appointees under the statute. So if, for example, City of Cocoa has a 7-member downtown CRA board, the person that gets appointed has to be a resident within the CRA geographical area. Okay, that's number 1, or engaged in business, which means owning a business, practicing a profession, or performing a service for compensation, or serving as an officer or director of a corporation or business entity, serving in the CRA area itself. So CRAs are geographically limited in their authority. The appointments for those 2 seats are likewise geographically limited to residents living within the area, and businesses, person that owns a business or engaged in business, officer, director of a corporation, engaged in business in that area only.
But if you're an elected official, you don't have to live in the area.
No, the city council does not. They appoint themselves to serve on the CRA board. They're in. Their term is limited, obviously, to their term of serving on the council. Once their term on council expires, so does their CRA term expire, and then the new elected official will come in and serve on the CRA board to fill that seat. And the appointees, they would be appointed for 4-year terms, and they are subject to removal, but they're subject to removal based on statutory criteria, just can't arbitrarily or just at a whim remove them. There has to be statutory grounds to remove one of those appointees from serving on the CRA board, such as neglect of duty is one of the grounds for removal. All statutory driven.
Thank you. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. As to draft up kind of the requirements and mirror advisory board and obviously follow state statute would be something, maybe we don't vote the 2 in tonight, but to bring that back at our next CRA board meeting to at least look at what the requirements would be like. It's something that may be good. I don't sense that the majority here today want to just add 2 today. I didn't hear that. So, at least laying out what it would look like, maybe we can get more comfortable with it.
And I think for the reasons that Anthony stated, they would have to be residents or own a business in the CRA area. That makes them definitely stakeholders in what's going to happen in the future. And I just don't see why it's not a good idea. If they're subject to, all the things, the criteria, what we set up for them to apply, what would it hurt?
Yeah, well, I think we heard accountability, engagement's low. They want it, that they're not elected. The partisanship, I don't think that, I think that's a non-issue. I don't even find that being something we have any control over anyways. And so, yeah, that's it. And a motion to draft a description, just keep it under the consideration phase, I think is about as far as we would probably get it tonight. Assuming they would even consider that, but it's up to you. Vice Chair Kellum, what you want to do?
I just would say, I think if we don't close our minds to it and be open about it, come back with some kind of criteria and what it would be. And the fact that, there's low participation in the other boards, maybe this board and the CRA and our future is right up somebody's alley, and they would, why say, well, you're not participating, so we're not going to let you be on this board. I think business owners in the city and, economic development is important. New people coming in, opening businesses, they would want to be part of what's happening, I would believe. But I think if we're not closed-minded and we let the staff come up with some kind of criteria or by state statute, like Anthony was saying, I think it could help us, not hurt us. And they're accountable to their other business owners or residents, if they're residents here, if they're, and they're not the vote that's going to make up their mind, but they are helping us make up our minds in votes and stuff moving forward.
Any other comments from the board?
To Vice Chairperson Kellum's suggestion there, had we had something on this that said more than alleviating partisan votes, you wouldn't have gotten the negative input at the beginning. But if you wanted to come back with the criteria for selection, how we select them, how we vote on them, is it a 5-0? Is it just a majority? Because you might have a majority one year, and 2 years later, you're going to flip. It's going to be a different majority. So I would want to see, like Anthony had told us, I want to see all of those criteria out there. Everything that they're would be accountable for. And I would like to see it. But as we're discussing right now, I don't want to vote on anything right now. I want to know how you get them on there, who you select them, what criteria we're going to put to them, and the whole term of, I know in the statute or the supporting document, it was section 6, it said that the first member would be 2 years. And then we're going to select another. So it's 2 and 4, and they get to sit here longer than we do. So I would like to see a lot more flesh to this than what we have.
Thank you. So, Vice Chair, if we just got consensus that maybe start a draft document at the next CRA board meeting, if that works, or even to flesh out some of these concerns that they heard tonight.
I'm
Would
for
that be
that.
something?
I don't want to choose 2 people tonight. I just want to bring up the subject, have a discussion, move forward with all the right information. I just wanted to get it in front of the council or the board and see if we could come to a consensus to move it forward, come up with a draft, fix the criteria or the years or whatever needs to be done. I just don't want to say no to say no.
City manager, or I don't know, Dave, did you heard some of the accountability, trust, what's the process? Have good grasp of what we would need to start to consider something like this?
Certainly models out there that we can look at and see how other communities do it. And get something back in front of the board if that's what the board wants for further discussion.
I think you making sure that accountability is strong, making sure that we can overcome those, and what what's best for Cape Canaveral may not be best for in those others. And I trust y'all's judgment to at least bring a proposed simple draft. I don't think anyone tonight is saying if you do that, they're going to move forward. It's a light consideration, and heck, I might look at it and say, this is a bad idea, but I wouldn't want to do it without knowing those things. So.
Chairperson,
Yes.
I think we clearly understand what you're describing to come back with, but what's not clear is there board consensus for staff to come back with this?
I'm about to take
Thank
that
you.
up, but we'll make sure that you got that.
I would prefer to see a firm process before considering adding two people or voting on the possibility of adding two people. I want to see the process.
Might take several iterations, might be
It might.
one meeting, but we'll get it. Chairperson Davis, anything you want to add to it? We'll see where it goes, but Chairperson Raymond, Vice Chair Kellum?
Yeah, I just would like to see it move forward. Like I said, I don't want to jump into adding two people right now. Let's get it right. Let's see how it looks and then vote on it. But let's not just say no to say no. It's.
Do I have a consent? Does anyone oppose the direction for staff to come up with a draft with a strong process and criteria?
I'm against, so.
Okay. Anyone else against it?
I'm against it too. I think that staff has enough work to do, and I really have an objection to loading a lot of work on staff constantly. I think that we need to, every time we do this, we need to consider just how much work it takes. And it could take hours and hours and hours. And we have to remember that that takes time away from other projects that are, the priority, right now. And we have a lot of projects that are on the priority list. So I really worry about overloading staff. And so that's why I have to say I'm against it right now. I think perhaps maybe after the November election would be a good time to bring it up again. Thank you.
Councilmember Willis, are you okay for consideration still? And I'm going to say something to staff time because I'm sensitive to that. Yep.
Well, our next scheduled CRA meeting is September.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time period, if it is not a burden, I would still like to see a solid process first. So, yeah.
Obviously, if other priorities got in the way of this, and this wasn't ready at the next CRA board meeting, I would completely understand. And so I think just a minimum draft to say, hey, put an hour into it, something would be valued, and it might take 3 or 4 more meetings to get it right. So that's y'all's judgment, but having a draft template or a process procedure and overcoming some of the things we heard tonight, sounds like we at least have 3 folks here who are open to consider that consensus.
Understood. I also agree there are 3, so that's consensus. We'll move forward with a process template for adding 2 members.
Thank you very much. Okay. With that, I don't think we need to take a formal vote or anything. Consensus is taken up by verbal comment. We can move on to item number 4, which is a discussion to review, update, and fund the financial incentives developed in 2018, submitted by Vice Chair Kellum.
Yes, thank you. I think, reading through the CRA and it was amazing to me to learn at this class how much CRAs can really do that we as a city haven't really pushed towards or went for. And also talking about time and staff time, there in the CRA, we can hire our own staff to do CRA work, or we can compensate the staff we have now up to a certain percentage for work they do on the CRA. So, I mean, if their work as the city is not getting us the CRA plan or initiative that we need, maybe we need a CRA staff. I mean, I don't think that that is a reason to not implement these plans, go through our plans, add the other 2 people per staff time. I mean, in the CRA, if I'm right, Anthony, we can pay staff out of the CRA money a certain percentage of their
Yeah, I don't know if the city doesn't already do that. I mean, I mean, the way the city of Cocoa does it is that there are some staff members that, some of their time is allocated to the CRA, and, percentage of their salary and benefits is covered. For example, they have a CRA coordinator that works under the city manager that, works on, dedicated to work on CRA matters.
Right.
When the CRA covers that expense, the city of Cocoa has considered the possibility of doing community policing. That's far from being decided, but and I don't think they're going to go down this route. But theoretically, some CRAs have covered additional law enforcement expenses for
Right.
community policing within CRA areas. So those types of like personnel expenses. CRAs technically, can use TIF funds for.
Right. And I think, I talked to Dave and also Todd, when this started out as very small and it's building every year and we're getting more money into the CRA fund. And it does a lot of things in our city. So, but I think it needs to be maybe more separated than it is. We learned, Angela, you were there, that CRAs own land. They have land, they own different things, they lease land. There's so many things we can do with the CRA that we're not presently doing. And, simple things by adding 2 people, if it takes up staff's time, then pay them out of the CRA to do it. I don't want to miss out on opportunities because we're stretching the staff's time when we actually can have staff paid by the CRA. And then back to this agenda item, we have a comprehensive plan that helps small businesses and residential. And, we've been using the money a lot for debt payment. And there's so many other things we could do as well with this plan. But I think we learned in the meeting that the best practices for CRA is to review the plan every 5 years. This plan was developed in 2012. We're a different city now than we were in 2012. I think it's time to maybe look through the whole plan, revise it. We just got a revisioning. People's wants and needs are different than they were in 2012. There's way more money in the CRA than there used to be. And continuing in the future, there's going to be more and more money. So I think it needs to be maybe, and I hate to say it this way, but taken more seriously as a funding for more than just debt payment. And then, in this plan has, facade grants, there's business things in there. There's the city Delray Beach that helps people, job startups, business startups. There's so many things we can do. And as you guys see through the revisioning, that the citizens want more business here. They want economic development. It comes through in the survey, many different places. So I think that's the importance of the CRA, is to help with that. And maybe, but do we need to start with the plan before we go to the incentive? That needs to be revamped or even funded. But do we know we really need to go back to the plan itself? And that's why I was asking about the meeting schedule. I think we need more CRA meetings to get this thing done, to revitalize our plan that was adopted in 2012. And then, fund the different incentives for businesses. Building the community development center helps raise property taxes around there, which helps our tax base. But so does putting money into our residents for them to fix up their houses, pave their driveway. There's very many different things we can do to invest in the citizens and the local businesses, as well as fund, big projects. There's a lot of little things we can do to, make our city better and help the residents.
So that's all I got on that.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure this agenda item, you're talking about this 2018 financial incentives that was developed and to review and update and fund, and that's the incentives. Today, we've done the sign. Actually, I guess this started, yeah, it was 2018. Of course, that's where it started. But I'm proud of that. I think that, hey, it was a little slow inertia, but we've gotten some case studies, some success stories out of it. I think we allocated $50,000 for that. Is that right? Do you remember how much?
25.
How much has been deployed? Was it 25?
25 last year, and through council's earlier discussions for this year, going into 22, 23 is going to be 50.
Okay.
50,000 this year, because y'all want to expand what you want the program to be. So it's 50,000, but it was 25,000 last year. Or when we say last year, we really mean this year, because the new budget's so close.
When was the first grant issued? Was it? Okay.
Roughly 9 months ago.
And since then, have we gotten any more?
We've had one, I believe we've had two.
I think
Two
we've had a
total.
total
Two to three
of
total.
three. I think we've had a total of 3 and we didn't even spend a 25
No.
to 25K. Now we're going into the new year next year with a fresh 50K.
So basically,
Is that CRA funds, the 50K?
Yes,
there was a $5,000 cap per one.
right.
We had 25 allocated. Did we spend 5 3 times totaling 15,000?
I think the third one was a little bit less than that because the totals, it was 50, we only paid
Yeah, it
for
was like
50%.
2,500 or something.
Yeah, it was a little
Yeah.
less than that.
We have like 10 to roll over. And, okay, understood. The other proposed plans in there are a facade grant. Oh, that's my page. Basically landscaping, paint, signs are all
Yeah,
ways to address blight.
Yeah, it's really divided into two different large categories, residential and commercial. And then each of those larger categories they're broken down into, I think, 3 or 4 different funding programs in each of those larger categories. And that's correct, Mr. Chairman, is that it ranges from facade grants, clean up, fix up, paint up. There's a particular program on the commercial side for site preparation to help a property owner get ready for development. So it's really a smorgasbord based on what the particular needs of a property. So.
And I'd like, if I may, Chairperson, to bring up something that was discussed earlier. And, I've been to CRA training too when this all began. I went down to South Florida. And the thing you got to remember when you want to include resources that work on CRA projects in the CRA, I was cautioned by the auditors 4 or 5 years ago, when our previous city manager, we had a discussion with them. And of course, we're not a big city. Now the other cities, they have firemen and policemen, and like Hillsborough County or whatever, where I went, they had a big CRA. And if the fire department was in the CRA or the police department was, those positions were allocated and the CRA as part of the CRA fund down there. Now, I just want to come right up here to Cape Canaveral real quick. We've never had the luxury of doing that because our capital projects usually consume all our money, and to include the debt service we pay for these no interest loans pretty much we get to do these projects. I would caution the board in the sense that, let's just say, I said, you know what? Everybody that in the city hall or city employees who worked on the MGF or the Cape Center, all their time, that's a capital project in the CRA, is going to be charged to the CRA. We got to be very careful because although our funds are growing in the CRA, they haven't grown that much. We don't want to jeopardize the money we have to spend on the actual projects. And because we could end up taking thousands out, maybe 15, 20,000 out for the individuals who are going to be working on the project. Your finance director, for instance, if I spend 100 hours a year working on, hypothetically, the MGF, then we're going to move that cost over here. If Dave does that, now we're moving Dave's over. Oh, my accountant has to do that. My financial analyst has to do that because she has to do all the POs. If you could get the big picture, it could really start spinning. And I don't know if council would want to actually do that because they want to spend their money. We want to spend our money on the actual project costs, which you'll find as we get forward and next upcoming year. There was a nice briefing today on presidential streets. And when we see the cost of the presidential streets and if they're in the CRA, there probably is not going to be any money to pay the Daves, the Johns, the city manager, the accountant, or the IM people to be working out of the CRA. That's all I got.
Thank you. Yep, I think that we've deployed 15 of the first 25,000 before the accounting on it of the pay your is different for entities and just trying to manage time on the different ways of compensation seems like a really heavy lift. I know that the way we do it, other cities blend, especially when you're small. But if there becomes a demand like, hey, we need a full-time person just managing CRA, I think we know we can do that, but we benefit from having that blend. To me, there's benefits from accounting to know like exactly how much was CRA work, but I would be interested in trying to get some of these other programs that we worked on and taking the 10,000, a portion of that was not spent, and spending enough to promote, maybe it's a letter to the folks who live in the CRA district or the businesses, and educate them about the grant. If it's $1,000 is what we need to send it to 2,000 property owners to say this program's available, and to try to get more businesses to take advantage of it for the following year. We did something like that, I think, to kind of push it because we had no activity. And other than that, getting people aware of it, I think will help with adoption, and adding in another one of these would be great, whether it's facade or whatever this board thinks to help with the blight. Those are all my comments. Thank you. Yes.
A few years ago, the county commission actually threatened to eliminate CRAs. And what happened at the county commission is very interesting. A lot of the cities were using it to try to eliminate blight in residential areas or businesses. The discussion was, wait a minute, do we use this money for individual benefit or for the entire community? Like what we've done so far, what we've used our CRA money for is to benefit every resident in the city of Cape Canaveral. Our multi-gen facility is a good example of how we use that money. One of the problems that some of the commissioners objected to was that they felt that the cities were choosing winners and losers. And that's the reason why they threatened to eliminate it totally. Now, I think that we have to think about this. We have to be very cautious. Commissioner Lober favored Cape Canaveral because of the projects that we had to build our community spirit, and also that it benefited all of the residents, not just some of the residents. So I think we have to be very careful. And personally, I think that I would feel a little uncomfortable choosing Mr. John Smith's house over Mr. Tom Jones' house. So I'm just saying that I do think that this is something that we really have to think very, very carefully about. Thank you.
You, Chairperson Davis or Willis? Comments? Yep, got a Chairperson Raymond, I think those are all points, and our city attorney, and we've talked about this before, is the way we wrote this program, I think addressed a lot of that. And it's about having equal access to everybody, and those who act in a first come, first served basis get the equal opportunity. It doesn't mean equal outcomes, but they all have that same access and opportunity. And I think being careful is a good thing. But if there's a desire to revise the original 2012, or at least go back and read through it again, I would say, but between now and the next meeting, we can all read it, and I'll come back with some ideas and work with Dave, our director, and see if there's anything in city manager that we think we should change and bring this back. But not knowing anything, they might be working on it today. But as far as another grant, my last question today is, which other one other than the sign do you think would be best to implement?
Well, I'd like to defer to the board and say that's really a policy decision. I mean, if blight, I hear a lot about blight. I heard a lot about it during the visioning sessions. I heard about it at the city council's strategic annual retreat, and I've heard about it for the last 8 years, frankly. And so I guess the question would be, which of these programs does the board feel you'd get the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to addressing and fighting blight? I hear a lot about how it looks when someone drives up and down North Atlantic and Astronaut. That's seen. My sense is that's where, when people think of blight, they're thinking of the commercial properties along the main corridor through the city. Personally, I haven't heard much about peeling paint or on a home on Pierce or whatever. I'm using this as examples. Yeah. So I think if there's a particular fund or program in the palette that you have that would more address that blight, might be more appropriate. However, that is, that's strictly a policy decision by the board. That's just a thought I have that I shared with you.
So what we have today under the commercial side, that's helpful, and I would agree, is really a matching facade grant program. We put some kind of rules and limits on there, but it was 1.1. I'm on the first page, is signs. We've launched that one. We have awnings and canopies. We have facades. We have walls and fencing, reconstruction of storefronts, lighting, landscaping, and low impact development. When we talk about not just the CRA, excuse me, when we talk about the issues in the city, we know that stormwater, flooding, resiliency is really important. So wherever there's an overlap, that's an opportunity. We know that water for ARPA funds is popular. And so to me, the low impact development really stands out in this, I think goes in with the landscaping, is if I just off the cuff, one that could provide a really big impact is working on something within that 1.7 section for commercial businesses to help trails or whatever on their property. So rain barrel programs, whatever that we can think of. But if that's my comment, I'm open to it. Maybe it's another 10,000, 20, 30, whatever we can do. It's a good thing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
I want to read something. These are constraints of the city of Cape Canaveral by a visioning session. Disconnected bike paths and sidewalks, lack of a town center, signage standards and unattractive buildings, vacant or derelict buildings, no public launch facilities, lack of code enforcement, visual light blight on A1A. You know when this was?
2009.
2009. And we have the same things happening. That's why I feel like these programs are so important to fund and to help the people, residents and businesses in the area. There's a section in here that repurposing requirements and procedure, repurposing buildings, where is it? Rehabilitation, redevelopment, and repurposing of additional buildings. That is so important, but we never get to fund this because we spend all the money on the big, which are awesome, they're great, but maybe it's time to invest back into our community. That I just think we say, you know, blight, like Dave says, but do we ever do anything about it? And do we fund programs that will help businesses, private sector come in and revamp our city? You know, that's why I brought this up. And, you know, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but just to maybe schedule another CRA board meeting in the next, you know, not wait a month and discuss this again. It doesn't have to be decided tonight, but we have to address it. And it's been kicked down the road forever. And I just think it's time to address it. And if it takes another 3 or 4 CRA board meetings, then let's do it. Like I said, it doesn't have to be done tonight, but if we agree these are things we want to do, you know, we have a new revisioning strategic plan, and, you know, let's rank the CRA projects and look at the revisioning and go from there. I just think it's time to stop kicking the can down the road.
I think as we formalize and adopt the visioning and the goals, we know this CRA is a tool that we can use. We have the right to go to the next meeting, and I am for rolling out another program that we think is going to provide the biggest impact to those 10, 12-year blight challenges. And so we've got a few minutes left. We're at 5:57. We obviously have a meeting at 6, so I think we can wrap this one up. But between now and the next meeting, I think we bring back some proposed changes.
Right.
They worked hard on the program. We just need to give them the green light on whether we want to implement it.
Right. And we don't have to do that again tonight. We need to address the things that we've been trying to since 2009 or earlier.
Yes.
I'd like to make one quick comment, and I'm going to stick up for my code enforcement guys here. Code enforcement is, I mean, if we can't rely on code, and I've said this to the board before, that we can't rely on code enforcement to go out and proactively change blighted properties. We can maintain blighted properties, and we can make sure they don't get any worse. But to get out in front of this issue and to really make substantive, substantial changes, we're going to have to do something differently, and we're going to have to, frankly, put some money into it. Thank you. Thank you.
I would just like to say that I talked to Brian the other day. I stopped in his office and, you know, said, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Is this a good tool? And I watched the code enforcement board the other night, the meeting, and there was a couple people in there with problems with their house. Here we have a perfect tool. Instead of penalizing these people, you go and you say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And this is how the city can help you, you know, and have a funding mechanism for that, and, you know, help people help themselves.
I think when we get into the budget, which we're about to get into, we know this program is written, and we need to flag and go, that might be a good CRA opportunity, and pair it up with the vision. So with that, let's wrap it up. Chairperson Raymond.
I'm very much in favor of number 5, because I definitely think that we do need the public relations and the public relations guide. We need to tell the residents and advertise what we've already done with the CRA funds so that people know that, so we can move forward on that. Thank you. Thank you, Mickey.
We're going to have to wrap up. I know item 5.
These are
1 minute. We need to start at 6. Maybe we circulate that, but
yeah,
we need to start a council meeting.
That's fine.
Any other final comments? Okay, meeting adjourned. We'll start here in about a minute. 1 second.
And the county commissioner takeaway of the,